Welcome back to Creasonomics with your host, myself, Mr. Gray. Today we are going to talk about pretty much is StockX manipulating the sneaker market? Before we really delve into that exact question or that exact subject matter, we have to do a little bit of a pre-defining of what StockX is, and it's kind of a precursor just to explain to people what StockX is. One thing is I always tend to read or hear people saying different things about StockX, and I'm not really defending them or not defending them. I guess by being a person that's used it a lot, I hear a lot of people who haven't used it as much talk a lot of negative talk about it. And yes, I don't think it's all positive, everything about it, but there are some pros and some cons with it. Either way, first let's go into what is StockX. So StockX is it's an application that it's an app that you can download on your phone, but you can also go to their website pretty much to buy or sell sneakers. So pretty much it's a stock market for sneakers. So before we go any more into actually StockX, let's think about what it based its model on. It based its model on the stock exchange or the stock market. So when I say, let's just say I use this term loosely. When I say it's StockX manipulating the market, I'm also including GOATs, the stadium clubs, all large organizations that are selling sneakers. But it's easier to choose the largest one on the top. So that's the name I'm sticking with, but it's kind of all encompassing. So now back to the stock market. So the stock market, there's several types of stock markets. There's the most popular ones, and then there's ones that aren't as popular as others. So of course the most popular one is the New York Stock Exchange. So let's just say the New York Stock Exchange is StockX. And then there's the NASDAQ, which is the next really popular one. Let's just say that's GOAT. And then you have the Japan Exchange Group, which is let's just say that's Stadium Goods. And I don't even know what if Flight Club is in disarray at the moment or not, but either way, we'll say Flight Club is the London Stock Exchange. So we have several different stock markets, right? They all buy and sell stocks. And so how does the stock market work? So the stock market works is you have companies that they offer you shares in their company. So let's just say you want to buy 5 shares into their company. You buy, 5 shares at $10 a piece, and you own a part of their company. So it's a little different when you compare the stock market to StockX. So first of all, with the stock market, you have a company making the offerings. The stock market, which would be the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, they're the ones who do the management of the buying, selling in between. They don't own the stocks. But that's the same with StockX. One common misconception about StockX that I hear from a lot of people is, there's like, why does StockX keep raising their prices? StockX doesn't own a single one of them shoes. Them shoes aren't sitting at StockX waiting to sell to you. So for those of you who don't have a true understanding of StockX, they're not a retailer. They don't have shoes sitting on their shelf waiting to sell to you. It's just like the stock market. It's a buyer-seller exchange. The stock market has companies that sell stocks and people like us that are buyers that buy the stock. Same with StockX. You have buyers who are buying the sneakers, and you have sellers who are selling the sneakers. The next thing to go into is, the raising and lowering prices. So that can be a little bit tricky. So prices can go up and down based on good information, bad information, or misinformation. So let's just say let's go back to the stock market. So you hear that Colgate, they're about to come out with this new industry defining teeth whitening toothpaste that's never been heard of before. So people are like, oh my God, it's new and it's known to do really well. So people are like, hey man, we should buy into the stock. This is going to really raise the stock of this company. So you tend to buy into it. So the same can go with sneakers. If you hear really positive things about the next Jordan 1 Off-White, you're like, oh my God, the Jordan 1 Off-White's going to come out. Then you hear the hype behind it. You realize, you know what, this is a sneaker I have to get. But then there's ebbs and flows here. bad news can also tank a shoe. So bad news such as, a lot of times people are like, oh man, I want to get this shoe for resale, but I'm not sure if it's going to do a good or not. And then, if you are so lucky to find out, oh wow, the stock numbers are going to be like 200,000, then all of a sudden you're like, that's bad information. That's good information, but it's bad for the shoe. So you decide, you know what? I'm not buying this, because with 200,000 in stock releasing, the shoe's not going to be worth as much, because most people that want it are going to be able to get their hands on it. But then you have misinformation, which in the sneaker market, I don't know if there's a lot of misinformation. In the stock market, there is misinformation. Sometimes a company can put out information that's not necessarily true to boost the value of their stock. In the sneaker market, there's never really misinformation really put out that I can ever really recall. You may just be missing information, like you don't know the stock number, so you don't know if it's going to be a valuable shoe or not. But outside of that, like I said, you have good news, you got bad news, and you have misinformation. The next hoop to jump through is who determines the market prices. So that falls in a couple gray areas also. So in the stock market, it's well known that a company sometimes can buy up a lot of their own shares, which can boost up their own stocks, making it look like it's more valuable than it really is. Well, with StockX or other reselling aftermarkets, first of all, we're not dealing with Nike's that we know of. We're not dealing with Nike or Adidas selling directly to StockX, and then buying their own product. And as far as we know, we're not dealing with StockX either buying the product themselves and selling it. Now, could they? They could if they wanted to. The chances they are buying the product themselves and reselling it and manipulating the market on their own, I would say, are really slim. One thing I do want to share is I went through tons and tons of different comments. I think I went to Indeed.com, I went to Glassdoor.com, and on them you can put in a company, and a lot of times you can look at the reviews of people who work there or used to work there, and they'll tell you what they thought about the job. And although I read a lot of things about StockX, I learned a lot of things about StockX where if you worked there and you weren't like in the upper echelon of like executive level and above, if you were lower than that, you did not enjoy the job for the most part. I'm not going to say all the reviews, but a lot of reviews do not appear, from what I read, to not really enjoy working at StockX. But one thing I do not see, well, I guess you wouldn't put this out there. I was about to say, you don't see a lot of people saying that, they're stealing sneakers or or that they're buying. They're not giving you information about the fact that, of what I hear people say, that StockX is buying sneakers themselves and then selling them for higher prices. You don't hear people see that. Even though I've heard a lot of negative things, I don't hear any. I guess I'm not hearing the negative things that I hear people say that they don't really know. And so once again, I can only assume that these are true people that work for or used to work for StockX. The internet, of course, can always be manipulated. So anyway, back to who can raise the prices up and down. So with the stock market, as I just explained, a company can end up buying their own stock, which would inflate the level, which would make people think that their stock is worth more, so the people go out and buy more. But with StockX, what would typically happen is, I guess you need to look into who's selling the sneakers. So sneaker sales come in, of course, come from different people. So one thing people mainly complain about today are resellers. So you have resellers, which get a lot of stock, and then you have collectors. Collectors sell for a myriad of reasons. They have way too many shoes. I mean, I've known people who have hundreds or maybe thousands of shoes and they really need to downsize. Then you have collectors who are like, I really want this Grail, and so if I can sell these 5 shoes, I can get this $5,000 shoe I've always wanted. But I'd say by far and most, the resellers are the ones that are probably that are making the most effect on the level of pricing of the market. As in, if I'm a reseller and I get 10 Jordan 11 breads when they come out, well, let's forget that. Let's just say, because from what I see sometimes, I see people with a ton. I say I get 50, and I get them in advance before release. Now, I'm not going to put them up there for retail because I want to make money. So let's just say I put them up for 300. I just set the market price if I'm the first person to put it there. Now, I know if we want to go back to saying, hey, well, what if StockX bought them? There's not enough information out there to say that they're doing that. I personally don't believe they are, but no companies are perfect. The stock market isn't perfect. The companies that are selling their stocks through the stock market aren't perfect. So it's not above any company, of course, not to do it. But the difference also between the StockX and stock market is, in the stock market, it's illegal for certain practices like insider information and manipulating stocks in certain ways. With StockX, you can, if you have insider information, well, good for you. It's helped you if you're a reseller or if you're even a buyer. Insider information is the best thing you can have, knowing when to buy something and when not to. But back to the manipulation of the price. If you're the person who gets something early, you set the market if you put it out there. So for people who do blame aftermarket companies, once again, not just StockX, GOAT, Stadium Goods, Flight Club, for those that get them early or get them period and then charge an absorbent amount for them because there's not many on the market, just know that technically, in a way, the buyers are kind of still, and I know guys are gonna be like, I'm going back and forth. In a way, the buyers are setting the market, and let me explain that. If somebody, let's just say 100 of one shoe came out, and somebody said, I'm gonna charge $5,000 for this shoe. Well, if no buyer buys it, they're gonna come down eventually. It always happens because you want to sell the shoe. So in a way, what we buy really determines the market. Yes, the reseller may have control over the price, but if he's not making any money within a certain amount of time, then he's going to lower his price. So at that point, the buyer does have control. So it's a really kind of a tug of war between the buyers and the sellers. So I guess it's come right full circle. So you guys came here today to get an answer from me about, is StockX manipulating the market? My answer is going to be yes and no. As you can see with everything I've explained, there's really no true simple answer. But yes, because they provided the platform, which again, that would be GOAT or Stadium Goods or Flight Club. They provided the medium, the way for us to use the market. So yeah, in a way, they're partly we rely on them to provide this market for us to sell our sneakers. So they're partly to blame for the market prices, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to the buyer and the seller. And it really comes down to is the buyer. Because if the buyer doesn't buy, the seller doesn't sell. Is StockX manipulating the market? My answer for you guys today is yes and no. But the higher percentage of who is manipulating the market to me goes to the people that are using the StockX or GOAT or Stadium Goods platform. It's the sellers, it's the buyers and the sellers. And I guess one thing, so I feel like we got that out of the way. The whole reason you came here is to kind of get my answer on that. But I guess one stigma that I hear, of course, people collectors, especially OG collectors, can't stand resellers, and resellers really just don't care. I've met some really hardcore resellers, and they're not losing any sleep on how buyers feel about what they set their prices at. Reselling is going to always be around. Reselling has always been around before sneakers, and actually before all these apps such as, once again, GOAT, Stadium Goods, and StockX existed. Reselling was happening. It just wasn't as easy. When you had bigger markets in New York and Los Angeles and bigger cities, you had the rest of the United States who had no way of really getting a hold or getting their hand on these sneakers. The only other way before them was like eBay, and you never knew what you were going to get from eBay. You may get an empty shoebox. So let me see. Do I have any? So I think pretty much that is all I have for you guys today. Hopefully that information was helpful. Outside of that, tomorrow's July 4th. You guys have a great time. Hopefully you spend it with family and you get to eat some good food. And Mr. Gray out.